Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm your host, Tim Klauser, with the Center Square's Western Washington reporter, Spencer Pauly. Now, Spencer, we're here today to talk about Sound Transit opening its downtown Redmond extension after a year delay and almost $100 million over budget. Tell me a little bit about this project and maybe the tax initiative that got it all rolling in the first place.
Sure, Tim. Ask me the big questions up front. I like it. So basically, over the past weekend, Sound Transit finally extended light rail services into downtown Redmond. This is the first extension as part of the Sound Transit 3 project. Now, what that is a massive ballot measure that was approved by 54% of voters in 2016. And what it does, it establishes a 14-cent tax on a sales tax, basically property tax of 25 cents. And some motor vehicle excise taxes. And what that does is generate $54 billion in funding for the agency to help expand light rail services throughout the Puget Sound region. Now, the light rail for a long time now was just only in Seattle. But now what this 2-line does is it goes east into the eastern Washington, or eastern King County, I should say, and now into downtown Redmond. Now, that really helps a lot of people go to work, commute, and save on, cost for, using gas if they choose to do so, instead of going through I-5 traffic, I-90, and seeing huge commute times. So this is a big step. And I should say, this was Sound Transit 3 was passed in 2016. It is 2025. And we finally just had our first station as part of this bill. So this is a very first over the weekend.
Yeah, big weekend for Sound Transit. But like you said, I mean, we're nearly a decade after the fact of residents passing these tax measures. The first project's just being completed. They have less than 20 years until the projected end date for completing all of these projects. I mean, they went $100 million over budget on this one. Do they expect to go over budget on all these other projects that ultimately add up to $54 billion in funding?
They hope not. But Sound Transit does have kind of a reputation, I think, among some groups of constantly seeing delays to projects and increasing costs. This is not anything new. In the case of the 2-line here, this downtown Redmond extension was delayed. It was supposed to finish last year. But they got delayed because of what they said was a multi-month concrete strike back in 2020. You can blame the COVID-19 pandemic, but the point is that we're seeing approximately $98 million more than the estimated cost that they perceived in 2016, 2017 when they first established this plan. And that's a lot of money, but it's been 10 years later, and we have to think this is a pretty big project here. We're trying to connect the entire Puget Sound region. So we're not asking for anything built within 5 years. But it is kind of frustrating to see this. And you said it there. Construction on this entire $54 billion project is supposed to end in 2041. How many people voted in 2016 for this thing? And probably will never get to use it, whether, they're deceased by then, or if they just decide to move. I mean, we're getting morbid here with it, Tim, but these are questions that we have to think about. Whether or not there is a selfless act to vote for this and spend their tax dollars towards this initiative to connect the area, that's something to think about. But, the Puget Sound region has definitely grown thanks to the tech industry, the tech boom, and that goes in Redmond as well with Microsoft. And so this is necessary, and it's awesome that it's finally been built. But we have to think about the delays and whether or not it's going to happen again. And that's something that we've covered a lot extensively recently here at the Center Square. But at least we finally have the first extension in the Sound Transit 3 line.
We just talked about it. It took 10 years to get to this point where they were able to open this extension that cost 1.5 around their $1 billion.
Billion dollars.
That's a drop in the bucket compared to the rest of the projects that they have 15 years left to finish.
Isn't that crazy to think about? A drop in the bucket is $1.53 billion, Tim.
But Are these other projects less ambitious than this one extension? Was this expected to take the longest and the other ones are much smaller? Or, I mean, they have $50 billion left in 15 years and it just took them 10 years to do the first project.
So the Sound Transit 3, this is where it gets so muddied with, there was a Sound Transit 2 levy that was passed, and some of those projects got carried in a Sound Transit 3 levy package. So it gets the water is so muddied right now to understand what we're paying for, what was going in. But a lot of these projects have been just delayed. And so what we're looking at is Sound Transit is trying to extend east through the 2 line into Redmond and beyond. What's also going on is the 1 line, which goes north to south. It was basically running through Seattle, is now goes all the way up to Linwood and is soon going to connect to Tacoma. So we're going to connect Pierce and Snohomish County with King counties. And that's great for Puget Sound and helps people commute to the cities and whatnot. But they're also trying to expand the Seattle connection into Ballard and West Seattle so that those parts of the city are also connected through the light rail system, because they're currently not. I mean, if you live in downtown Seattle, say, and you want to go to the Ballard or Fremont neighborhoods where they're trendier, there's farmers markets there, whatnot, you have to find a different way. You have to maybe drive there. And let me tell you, parking over there is pretty difficult. It's pretty annoying. But you could also take the bus, which is an option, of course. But the light rail is convenient. You hop on, you pay, it takes you directly to the stop, you get out and you explore. But with, that's just part of the convenience that they're still looking for. Now, there's issues with that extension as well that they're still trying to go through. Basically, they're still in the design review stage. There's still no construction on this. So it takes a long time for these things to transpire. And that's what makes it so difficult. And when you see these delays and you see the costs continue to add up, it grows frustration with people who voted for this, thinking that they would be able to use this service, and they still haven't been able to.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see, how the voters would respond if they re-polled this, if they went back out and said, hey, this is where we're at so far. Do you want to keep paying for this? Should we lower our expectations? I mean, getting this far into it and looking at situations in California where they're trying to build this massive rail from LA to San Francisco or wherever that may be. I mean, they're going way over budget. They're looking to the federal government for bailouts. I mean, I'm sure voters are thinking about that and not wanting to put themselves in that same situation where the county or the state might be looking back at them and saying, hey, this is costing $100 million more than we were expecting. Can you pick up the change? I mean, have you talked to anyone in the area about this? What do they feel about the service in general compared to what they were expecting at the start?
I live in Seattle, where I have yet to see a levy of some sort get denied because it might be too expensive. So from people I talk to in Seattle, they're all for the light rail. They use it. It's convenient for them to go to downtown or Capitol Hill or to the airport. Takes you straight to the airport, so you don't have to pay $100 for an Uber to and from the airport, which is helpful, right? So it is convenient for them. But I think if you were to ask someone from Bellevue or Eastern King County, there's no reason for them to pay for this service that they're not using. And Snohomish County finally just got a station in Linwood. They've been paying for this as well. This is something that they have paid for, and they're finally going to use it, but just in Linwood. Are they excited that they finally are getting to use this? I don't know. I don't know many people from Snohomish County. I don't know anyone from Pierce County, but I do know that the consensus, what I'm seeing online, is that there are frustrations outside of Seattle because this light rail was more so dedicated to the city there to help bring people in, help people get to work, whatnot. A lot of people don't work in Seattle. That's the case. So I think that's also something to consider. Now, you brought it up, Tim, about would they reconsider any more tax dollars, and will Sound Transit have to look again at the taxpayers to fund any kind of more projects they may have? The new CEO is Dow Constantine, who was the King County executive up until he became the CEO 2 months ago. And he was he's well known for kind of lobbying for these levy measures. He did it with King County. He was the one that got the Sound Transit 3 levy measure on the ballots and successfully got 54% of the votes. Will he again look at voters and say, hey, we might need some more money. We might need to do a levy lid lift to speed up the process here. Will you do it? It could be a possibility, but nothing's for certain. This is just what I'm seeing based on what I've explored in the past couple decades of Sound Transit.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's definitely the appetite for projects like this in Seattle, where people there are even leaving the city to work. But when you get to other parts of King County, these rural towns that are already grappling under the relatively high property tax rate for the county in general, I mean, they might not have it in them to keep saying, hey, we're going to keep paying for these services that could take decades to reach us.
Tim, I'm just going to add, because Sound Transit, when they announced the success of the downtown Redmond extension here, that it's finally open for service, they said, get ready. There's going to be more within the next year. So we're seeing the 2 line is anticipated to be completed within the next year, which is great news. But that was previously rescheduled somewhere in mid 2023. And Sound Transit also expects the 1 line that goes north and south to go to the city of Federal Way sometime next year. So they're saying, hey, look, these projects, they're starting to, we're starting to get them finished here. So get ready. And, if we have any more projects, you'll see that it's working out. So you should fund it. But that's all just speculation at this point. We'll see if these projects get delayed anymore. I'll keep an eye on it, of course, Tim.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that everything pans out for Sound Transit and ultimately the taxpayers that are funding these projects. But we'll be sure to keep track of your coverage along the way. Spencer, thank you for joining us. And thank you, all of our viewers, for joining us on another episode of Washington in Focus.